as the presentation says, we're going to be all about planning, researching, and then discovery. Um, Please remember that the whole process of going abroad and studying there and living the dream, it has a lot to do with self-discovery. It has a lot to do with just the process of discovery in general. Which is why we recommend that when you do decide that you want to go ahead with it, you start the process early. So a lot of people ask me this question: how early is early, right? So when do I start preparing for my journey? When do I start thinking about it? Actually, there's no straight answer to this question, right? If someone asks you, if someone tells you that I think ideally 1 year is the right time to start preparing, there isn't no one answer. For me, I literally got through the entire process in a period of 4 or 5 months. I know that's insane. That sounds quite crazy. But the reason it happened so quickly for me was because I was just that motivated. I was very aggressive with my application. I just did everything very quickly. So it is entirely up to you, but it helps to start the research a year early, in terms of at least knowing where you want to go. So, as Anubhuti has already mentioned, I represent QS Leap, which is a test preparation platform. And on that platform, we have these webinars that help you decide which country you might like to go to. So we've got these webinars. Uh, for example, there's something called Study Masters in Germany. There's something Study Masters in UK. There's a Study Masters in the US, Study Masters in France. Why do we have these webinars? Because the very first thing you need to do is you need to figure out what country you want to go to. So the first point on our slide today is find your kind country. Okay. Now this is not as easy as just saying, oh, I love to be in the cold, so let's go to the UK, or I love coffee, so let's go to Finland. It's not like that. I think it's more about knowing which education system is going to work for you. And that's where the second point comes in, which is communicate with the schools. Because, right, so it's a parallel process. So let's say you decide that I want to go to Finland. But that's because I like the structure of their schools, the way they teach their curriculum. Now, how are you going to know about the curriculum? You can do some research, in the sense you can go on Quora, you can go Google stuff, you can try to find out what's going on. But still at the end of the day, you're going to have to actually speak to the schools. You're going to have to actually talk to them. And that is where QS becomes relevant again to you, in terms of the fairs that we have. So we've got a fair coming up just this weekend in India. So why are we doing these fairs? Because essentially what we're doing is we're allowing the students a chance to come and speak to those schools right there. So can you imagine, you go up to a school standing there at a stall, you have a very candid conversation about your own hopes and your dreams and your aspirations and why you want that particular country. They will remember you. So do you realize that they will remember your face? They will remember you and who you were, and you can actually put your foot in the door by just speaking to the schools. That's exactly why we have fairs. That's why QS is what it is today, right? So, but then of course there are other ways of communicating with the schools. The fairs is just one part of it. You should also take complete liberty to write to them, write emails, write like crazy. It does not matter, how frequently you reach out to the schools. If you have a question, write to them. You can even call them. So I found myself calling Bangalore University on many occasions when I thought, okay, I need to find out more about this stuff. That's why the key here is to communicate. You need to know how to just put yourself out there and get in touch with the schools. So that and finding your country will move hand in hand. So those are the first 2 points of the presentation. First of all, find the country that really suits you. So find out if the UK system works for you. While we're talking about this, know which masters is for how long. If you're going for a master's, if you're going for an MBA, how long is the course? What's the structure of the course? How long does it take? That's the next point. Just get familiar with the system. The UK masters is a 1-year master's. Okay, it's just a 1-year master's. So you need to understand that whether this 1-year master's is actually going to go and help you in the future, or if it's something that's better for you or not, who knows? You need to do that kind of research. The first thing is the country. Once you're aware of what country you want to go to, you need to know what schools you want to pick out. Uh, and also you want to get familiar with the system that that school has or that country has, and vice versa. So these are the most basic things that anybody will tell you, that do your research in terms of knowing what kind of course you want to go for and what kind of structure you want to sort of mold in. So the 1 year masters, for example, which is what I did, is extremely tight. There's 3 semesters. It's a trimester system, and by the time you reach the end, there's a lot of self work. Like you have to work on yourself. You have to do things on your own. So it's extremely self driven by the time we reach the end of the session. By the end of the whole process. So when you're doing the 1 year masters, then it's extremely tight and it's extremely well structured. But that might not work well for you. You might be the kind of person who works better in a lax system. So let's say you are in a 2 years master's program. In that case, you probably have to do very less work in one given period of time. Think about it like that. Don't just think about it from the perspective of, am I saving years or not? Are you cut out for that system? That's what you need to really know. Okay. Then finally, of course, once you've familiarized yourself with the system, you know what you need to get in. There'll be some schools asking for a GRE, some schools will be asking for a GMAT, some schools will be asking for an IELTS, some for the TOEFL. These are all specific requirements. I keep getting questions every other day from students saying that, oh, do I need a TOEFL to go to Germany, or do I need an IELTS to go to the UK? The truth is, everything is specific to the university. And that's exactly why, going back to my second point, you've got to write to them. It's not going to be a one-size-fits-all thing. It's not. You're not going to be like, oh, I want to go to France. Let me just apply to every school in France that there is. It doesn't work like that. Okay. If you decide that you want to go to France, you have to actually cherry pick the ones that you really like based on their curriculum, their courses, their requirements, and so, everything that I just told you for the past 5 minutes. And that is where the research phase really kicks in for you. And this is something you need to start at least a year before you start your actual preparation process, which is where you start preparing for a test. So let's say you have to take the GRE or the GMAT. You have to give yourself at least 6 months maybe to get that right? And that's why you need to 6 months before that 6-month period, which is essentially the 1 year period. That is when you have to start thinking about the country and which course you want to go into and all of that stuff. The next thing, reach out and network. Now this is a very, 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 very crucial part. This will also happen at the same time as you're networking. You're talking to the schools. You also have to network with other people in those schools. Okay. For example, I'm Indian. Okay. If I'm going to the UK, I need to find other Indians, at least in the beginning. How will I find that? I will have to network. How do I network? I have to find the relevant groups. How do I find the relevant groups? I find the first point of relevant contact. So where will I find that? Think about it. It's pretty obvious, right? If you come for an event like this one, like a QS event, you actually go up to the stall, you meet somebody right there. That's where you've got your first point of contact right there. You can just take numbers there and you can just grow. Another very useful way of networking would be to go on Facebook and just find these Facebook groups. I'm sure if you search for, Bangor School Batch of 2019, you'll actually get a Facebook group. And you will have a massive exposure right there. And not only will you get exposure, you'll also get to learn how people are using, what they're doing before they're getting there. Okay, so really reach out. And I'm still talking about the 1 year before mark, where you're deciding that, oh, I want to figure out this particular country. I want to go to this particular program. You've understood what kind of program is good for you. This is not the same as figuring out whether you're right for a program. This is, by now you've understood that you are good for this program. Like, for example, you want to do finance and you've decided that you want to do finance. Now, the right thing to do would be to reach out into finance sectors and other people who are doing finance. You understand? So the preparation is kind of, it's very undulated. It's not even. And that's exactly why we're doing this webinar today. It's never going to be a straightforward linear equation, where you start at one point and you go through you check every point along. It doesn't work like that. At every point, you will see that something is missing, something is wrong. So you have to go back 2 steps and then again execute on that and then come forward. And part of that is sort of alleviated. You feel better about yourself if you reach out more. So if you talk to more people, you learn better because you hear about their stories. You learn about what they did, how they went forward, what they did after they graduated. Because right now in this particular session, you can ask me 1,000 questions. What are the prospects of studying in the UK, or what are the prospects of studying in Australia? And is it true that they don't let you do this there, or is it true that that doesn't happen? You can ask me all of those questions. But me alone as one person will not have answers to everything naturally, because I haven't experienced it all. All I have is I have a repository of experiences from other candidates who've spoken to me. And you can do the same thing. That's nothing, there's no big deal in that. All you need to really do is maintain a sustained effort in terms of reaching out and networking. And that you have to learn any which way. Because if you're going to become a master's graduate or an MBA graduate, you're going to need to be a good networker. You can't just expect things to work out. You're going to have to learn it any which way. This is the right time to start. Next point, dive into some geography. I think this is something that people don't do. They forget to do this. They forget the fact that they're going to a completely new region, a new terrain, and they're going to have a life there. They're not just going there to sit in front of their books and their computers. Okay, you're going to want to travel. You're going to want to learn what's around you. You're going to want to soak in culture. You're going to want to, go out. You're going to want to make friends. And this is kind of blended in with the whole research that you do when you decide which country you want to study. Because the first point that I mentioned was about figuring out which country works for you academically. But in this point, what I'm saying is you need to figure out what country would work for you from a social and a cultural perspective. Okay, do you like to go to cultural places? For example, France. France is full of culture. Okay, do you like that? Or do you just want to go to a place where people are all about the economy and money, like the US? Okay, most people want to go to the US because they want to earn money. Okay, but there are some people who want to learn arts and culture. Maybe for them the US is not the ideal place. So this is what I mean when I say do your country research. And this is why again QS Leap can help you, because on QS Leap there are something called webinars where we are constantly giving you information about all these countries. So maybe you can go check those out as well. Okay. Now, otherwise, please understand, do the same kind of research that you would do if you were a traveler. If you're traveling to a new country, what kind of research would you do, right? Same idea. Figure out, what are the places to visit, or figure out, what is nearby. Figure out what the temperature is like. There are, for example, in the UK, I actually experienced times when I would go to sleep during the day because it was a Sunday or something. I would wake up midday. I would wake up around 3 o'clock, and there would be no sun. Okay, and then I was like, what just happened? Did one day just go by? Did I miss an entire day? That happened to me, and it came as a huge culture shock. I was like, where is the day in this country? Because I'm from India and I'm always seeing the sun. Okay, so know what will work for you from that perspective as well. You need to understand these things way before you go there, guys. Otherwise, once you just drop in there and suddenly you're like blackout. Like, oh my god, what country is this? This is so different from where I'm from. So you have to think of that, because you don't want to be in a situation where 6 months into the course you're like, listen, I'm done, I'm going back. You don't want that either. All right, so this is also part of it. Give language a chance. I think this is a very underrated thing, but it's also a little, I don't think people don't give this enough importance. If you're going to a place where a foreign language is spoken, you need to also give that, language some kind of chance or some kind of importance, because for two reasons. One, naturally, because you are new to the area and knowing the language will help you. But two, because this is a once in a lifetime opportunity for you to live in that culture, to experience their language, to learn from their language. Why not do it? So, for example, you go for a job interview, maybe let's say 3 years after you graduate, whichever country, could be in some other country. And they ask you in that interview that, oh, you studied in France for 3 years, or for 2 years, or 1 year, whatever. Can you give me an example of a really fulfilling learning experience that you had there? A very good answer to give for that interview question would be, oh, I learned French. I mean, I didn't learn all of French, but I learned the French that I really needed to, and that was a very fulfilling experience for me. You can give that answer. So there you go. So give it a shot. Give language a shot. French it may not be the most important language in the world, but hey, come on, it's going to help you score a job. So why not? Why are you going to France, right? So think about it like that also, because everything that you do in terms of going to a new place is ultimately going to reflect on your CV one day. It's not just going to be an experience that you just snapped out of. Which is why a lot of students tell me this, that I spent a lot of money, I went abroad, I had a completely different experience, but it's something that I will never take back, because I will trade nothing for that experience that I had there, because that is just that valuable. Don't miss out on those little things that are hidden inside the experience. Plan before you arrive. I think this is a very logical thing to say to all of you. I think the most important thing that you have to do is plan even much before you arrive. And when I say plan, I don't just mean plan your accommodation or plan, understand what your university map looks like. I mean plan it to the very minute, in terms of knowing that which are the classes that I will attend on the first day, or what are the first set of tasks that I will put in place the first day I land or the first day I arrive. So a lot of universities, they have these orientation weeks. Okay, so in Bangor it's called serendipity. So they call the first week of orientation serendipity, because what they do is they give it just a whole week for people to just serendipitously meet each other, discover each other. It's called serendipity. So you sort of network with each other, you get to know the people, and then you learn what are the best things that you can do for yourself in the week going forward. So that week of serendipity essentially helps everybody plan the days that are coming up ahead, because they know people, they learn people, meet people, learn about things, learn about what the city has to offer. So actually sit down and plan to that level. And so let's say you've booked a flight from your country to that country. Which airport are you landing at? What bus are you taking? Are you taking a bus? Are you taking the train? Do you have to make reservations in advance? Can you go there and make the reservations? Now, I'm telling you all this because sometimes I feel like we don't do this. We just think, yeah, we'll wing it. We're what, 24 years old, 25 years old? We can totally do this. I don't know, whatever your age might be. I'm assuming it's above 22. But you just think that, oh, I'm 22, I can totally do this. But it's not so simple. So you will have to plan things way before you arrive. And you'll have to plan along a lot of dimensions. And you'll have to think, you have to start foreseeing in advance. And that's how you're going to make sure that you don't actually panic. You organize yourself. You get everything in place before you land. And I'm telling you, that's not just, I don't just mean documents, because documents are, everyone knows that we have to do the documents, but there are other things. They're all hidden in plain sight. Think about those things way before you reach. Use the international center. Now, this is actually the coolest thing ever. So every school has an international center for international students. Important thing, remember this. Okay, schools have something called an international center, because the international center will give all these international students guidance about the city or country, town, whatever, wherever you are. Okay, for example, what are the nearest supermarkets? What is the nearest drugstore? Where do you go if you have an accident? Where do you register yourself? How do you register yourself on the healthcare system? So Canada, UK, these guys have their own healthcare system. So how do you register under that? How do you get a GP? How would you open a bank account? Very important question. So these are all specific to that particular area. So if you ask me these questions today, I can sit with you and talk to you and tell you what you need to do for the UK. But that's not going to help the other people. So the idea is, remember to go and find the international center first. Find your people first and then move to the others, because they're going to help you through the situation and then get you to the rest of the situation. That's about it, guys. Thank you so much for attending. That was the end of my presentation.